Unlike most Chinese in Hawaii, who are from Guangdong, my mother's family is originally from Fong Sing in GuangXi province, close to China's border with Vietnam. So my Popo would make her own version of Vietnamese dishes with her own unique flair. One great example of this is her spring rolls, called chun gyun in Cantonese or Chả Giò in Vietnamese. But there isn't a single Chinese restaurant or Vietnamese restaurant that I've ever gone to with spring rolls that tasted like hers. Spring roll is the more accurate translation of the Chinese name. Chun is the season of spring, and gyun is a rolled food, so chun gyun is a spring roll. Of course, these days we eat them year-round, but we also have them at Chinese New Year to welcome spring. They do look like gold bars after all. Let's start with the stuffing. Grate 1 or 2 carrots on the end with a fine grater. Be very careful when using a grater. I had a very bad accident with a mandolin last year, so I always wear these mesh gloves now. We'll also need some fresh green onion or scallion, which I grow right in my yard. Mince them small so they have a good distribution throughout. This is an interesting ingredient. Popo would use what we call long rice in Hawaii, or Fong Sing in Cantonese. I've also heard people call them bean thread or glass noodle. Boil your water and just dip the long rice in for maybe 15 seconds. That's all you need to soften them. Any longer and they'll be too soft and mushy. Don't pour out that hot water. We'll need it for later. We'll cut the long rice up into little bits, and they will serve to break up the meat in the filling, creating a better texture. Popo would also put crab in her spring rolls. Now she would actually buy a live, fresh Dungeness crab, boil it, and shell it herself to pull out all the meat. The fresh crab gives it a much better, more fragrant taste, and if you can, you should definitely do it that way. Unfortunately, I don't have the time for all that today, so we're just gonna make do with a can of crab meat. Besides, my cats love getting to lick the can as a treat. Now the main filling is a pound of ground pork. And of course, it just wouldn't be a Vietnamese dish without nuoc mam, fish sauce. It's pretty ubiquitous in Vietnamese cuisine. You know, I have no idea where the term egg roll comes from. I've heard the term, but it's not widely used in Hawaii. And there's no egg in this, in any version that I've ever seen. But I know the stuff you get on the mainland is very different than the originals. Now the fun part. We're going to wrap our spring rolls. But unlike a Chinese wrapper, we're going to wrap these in rice paper. Use the hot water from our long rice to wet the wrapper for only 20 seconds. Too long and it'll get too soft and unmanageable. Wrapping these is really tricky. You know what it's like when saran wrap clings to itself and it's nearly impossible to separate it and flatten it into a nice sheet again? This is 10 times worse. But just practice and you'll get the hang of it. Be sure to wrap it tight enough that there are no air pockets inside. Also make sure that there are no tears or holes and that the edges seal tightly to itself so that the filling doesn't just all fall out when you're frying it. It's such an interesting texture to hold at this stage. Do you remember those old water wiggler toys that would slip out of your hand when you squeezed them? It's kind of like that. You may have seen this rice paper used to wrap summer rolls, or goi kun, the fresh unfried Vietnamese spring rolls with shrimp, veggies, and noodles in them. But here, we're actually going to fry these. Now, we fry it on medium heat for about 4 minutes on each side. If you do it right, the rice paper will give you a very crispy, crackly texture that's different from the standard Chinese spring rolls. However, if your oil isn't hot enough, the rice paper will get soft and gummy and start to tear or fall apart. Unfortunately, I've had that happen to me too when I had one of my best friends over for dinner. It happens, but when you do it right, they're golden brown and delicious. PoPo would serve the spring rolls over rice noodles. In Vietnamese, the dish is called Bún Chả Giò. But actually, PoPo didn't use Vietnamese bún or rice vermicelli. Instead, she would use the thinner, firmer Japanese version, Somen. Growing up with it, I actually prefer the texture to the thicker bún that I see in Vietnamese restaurants. Vietnamese always serve fresh herbs and vegetables on top of their dishes. It's a great contrast of the fresh, healthy herbs and vegetables against the golden, fried richness of the spring roll. So again, we're grating the carrot, but this time the long way to create thin carrot noodle strands. Do the same thing with some cucumber, but use the larger grater size, or the more juicy cucumber will break apart into a watery pulp rather than making a nice strand. To that, we'll add just a couple spoons of vinegar to bring out the tartness to cut through all the fattiness of the meat. If you want, you can add a spoon of sugar to add some sweetness to the combination of flavors. We'll also need some fresh romaine lettuce for texture, and some fresh mint to add to the complexity of flavors. If you've never had it, fresh mint tastes nothing like the chewing gum or ice cream flavors. It's fresh and herby and a great addition to the flavor. Finally, we're gonna make a nice dipping sauce, nokjam, to go with everything. The secret to making great nokjam is having very fresh, ripe calamansi, like I grow in my yard. Calamansi are much more fragrant and intense compared to other limes, and their brightness will shine through the sauce. We'll start with 2 cloves of garlic. Just crush them, peel them, and then mince them small so the aroma will permeate the sauce. Then we'll add our fresh squeezed calamansi juice. Add in a 1/4 cup of sugar to bring out the sweetness, or Splenda works fine if you're diabetic like me. Then we bring back our fundamental nukmam. When my mom was little, my gonggong would actually make his own nukmam, and it was so good she would literally drink it straight. But here, we're going to dilute it a bit, at a ratio of 3:1 water to nukmam. If you want, you can kick the spice level up with a bird's eye chili too. Oh man, that looks good. GBD, golden brown delicious. Okay, let me show you how to eat this. There are 2 ways actually. Traditionally, Vietnamese would take a big leaf of lettuce and roll up the chả giò and a little bit of all the other ingredients. Then dip in the nokjam to make that perfect bite that has a little bit of everything. But doing it that way can get a little messy if you're not used to it. So PoPo would just serve the noodles in a bowl. And top it with the spring rolls, and then all the fresh herbs and veggies. And finish it with the nukjam all over it. It's a fantastic dish, rich yet fresh. Crunchy veggies against soft noodles and succulent meat. Tart, sweet, briny, meaty, crispy, and all those other flavors contrasting against each other, yet perfectly balanced. But you know, when I was a kid, my favorite way to eat the spring rolls was just straight up. Spring roll dipped in that addictive sauce. It's just so good. And it reminds me so much of my popo. A taste that I've never had anywhere else. Until next time, Joy Kim and a hui ho.